Okay, I want to welcome everyone today to our zoning basics for ANC commissioners. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Gail Fast. I'm a program analyst here at the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commission, and we welcome everyone this morning on this very toasty Thursday. We're going to allow the presenters to uh, do their thing, and then we will have an opportunity for questions and answers. If you feel there's anything compelling that you need, if you can't see the chat, you can go ahead and enter it in there or in the Q&A. I will watch for both of them. We do ask, though, that you stay on mute during the presentation to allow the panelists to get through their information. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce two women who I know very well, but many of you may also know Sharon Shellen has worked at the Office of Zoning since November of 2021. Prior to that, she worked as a paralegal in DC and Virginia law firms. She has a bachelor's in business administration from Averett University. Sharon's married with two grown daughters and four grandchildren. Congratulations. She enjoys spending time with her family and raising money for charities with the Fraternal Order of Eagles, which she holds an officer seat at the local and state levels. We also have with us today Kira Melhart, has been a part of the BZA team at the Office of Zoning since 2019. Prior to coming to the Office of Zoning, she worked with Arlington County's Transportation Department and ANC 60 on implementing transportation demand management initiatives. Kira has a master's degree in city and regional planning from Rutgers University and is certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners. So I'm going to go off screen. I'm also going to go off mute and allow our presenters to take us through zoning basics for ANCs. Welcome.
Thank you, everyone, and thanks to everyone for attending. First, I want to apologize for my appearance. I had eyelid surgery on Monday, so one of the side effects is that it gives you some permanent eyeshadow for a couple weeks. So I have this lovely purple today. So that's what I'm dealing with, is a couple black eyes from that. So anyway, I apologize for my appearance. So today we have zoning basics for ANCs, and that's what we're going to start with. And we do have the advanced training coming up. So if you haven't signed up for that, please do. Kira, if you want to go ahead and advance. By the way, I am Sharon Shellen, the secretary to the Zoning Commission. I do know Miss Kramer. I didn't look to see who else was on. Denise Wichter, I know that name. And I am familiar with a few of the names that I see on here. I can't see all of them. But anyway, Kira, if you want to move on, we'll go ahead and start. We're just going to start with the general overview of the zoning process. So the first thing is, what is zoning? And a lot of people have no clue until it ends up in your backyard. So zoning is the process of dividing land into zones to regulate what can happen with that property. What uses are allowed? Are they allowed conditionally? Are there prohibited uses? And the answer is yes, there are prohibited uses on your property. And also, we need to know what size and where can the buildings be placed on the property. And those are called development standards. And we'll get into that a little bit more. So then we go into the zones. What are the zones? And here are the zones under what we refer to as the ZR16. Prior to the zoning regs update in 2016, they had not had a total overhaul since 1958. We just kept on making text amendments, and we still do that just because it's an ever evolving document. We're always finding things that need to be improved. But here are some of the zones. You have your residential zones, which are your R zones, and then you have your residential flat, RF, residential apartment, RA, mixed use, MU, and then you have your, there's also, I want to say with the the R in here. There was a revision done in August, and there's a production, distribution, and repair, PDR. Some of you who have been around for a long time, this used to be our what we referred to as our industrial zones, okay? Neighborhood mixed use are now referred to NMU zones. That was one of the changes that was made, referred to as this R up here, the revision that was made, or revisions. Then you have your D zones. This is the downtown. Then we have special purposes. And this is what those who have been around for a while, we used to refer to as overlays, the SEFC, Southeast Federal Center, Union Station North, Hill East, Capitol Gateway, St. Elizabeth, the arts, and Reed Cook. So those are the zones, some of the zones anyway, just a very brief overview of those. So then talking about use categories, these are our use categories, and we try to fit everything in there. And I'm sure the Office of Planning usually comes forward with things for us to update the regulations. And I'm sure occasionally something comes about and it's like, well, where does this fit into all of these uses? And actually these uses were pared down from 1958. I think the list was much longer. So they've kind of condensed the list to try to fit everything into this. And as you can see, there's agriculture, Chancery, which in the district, that's a little bit different than a lot of other areas. And I have to say, Washington, D.C. is unique in itself. It doesn't really fit any of the other areas because we do have, with the federal government here and the chanceries and all of the other operations that come with federal government. It's very unique in itself, this area. So then, we got residential, retail, services, sexually oriented businesses. That always brings a lot of opposition when one of those pop up in the neighborhood. So there's government, local government, large scale, institutional uses, antennas. So there's a whole list of use categories here. Next, Kira. So then this is the development standards that I briefly went over earlier. This is where we start talking about the width of the lot, the area of the lot, the height, how tall are these buildings going to be on this property, the lot occupancy, how much of this lot will that building cover, how much of a front setback, the rear yard, the pervious surface, what's the max number of units is this going to have if it's a multi-unit building or zone rather, courts, penthouses, the FAR and the GAR. So those are your development standards. So when thinking about a development project, what are the kind of things that the ANC should look at? First thing you want to know is what zone is it in? And once you know what zone it's in, the next thing you want to know is, well, what uses are permitted in that zone? And what are the development standards for that zone? And once you have that information, you can move on from there. If they are, let's say the developer comes to you and comes to your ANC and says, hey, we're proposing to build a 90-foot building, and you look up their zone and that zone says the max is 60 foot. Well, there's a problem there. They can't do that as a matter of right. So that's a question to ask them. How are you going to put a 90-foot building there when that zone only allows 60 feet? So that's the kind of stuff that you would be looking for. Okay. And so the zoning maps and the regulations. So the zones that are shown on the official zoning map is, and the official zoning map is kept on the Office of Zoning's website. And if you don't know that, that's DCOZ, like District Columbia Office Zoning.dc.gov. That's our website. And that's where our zoning map is kept. And you're going to find all the zones on there for the property. And the requirements for the zones, the uses, the development standards, et cetera, are going to be found in the zoning regulations, which is Title 11 of the DCMR. Okay. And so with the zoning regulations, it's made up of 16 subtitles. And that's the ZR 16 that I referred to earlier. The 1958 regulations was broken into 35 chapters. And it's still on the books because there are a lot of cases that were approved under the 1958 regulations, especially some, say, PUDs, for example, talking from a zoning commission perspective, that were approved, and they may come back for, say, a modification of significance. They've decided to make a, maybe it's an office building, and now they want to do a modification of significance and turn it all into condominiums or something. So they could come back and do that. And so they were approved under the 58 regs. So, you'd have to look at that. So anyway, that's the two regulations that we have. And then we want to look at zoning versus planning. So zoning actions implement the long-term goals that are set in the comp plan, the comprehensive plan, which is Title 10A of the DCMR. And the comp plan is actually developed by the Office of Planning. So the comp plan also includes the generalized policy map, the future land use plan map, which is also referred to as the FLUM, the citywide elements, the land use, transportation, housing, etc., and area elements. Those are always they always play a role in our process, because the key is that the relief is not inconsistent with the comp plan. It's kind of weird the way that's worded, that it is not inconsistent with the comp plan, instead of saying it's consistent with the comp plan. That's not the wording. It's that it is not inconsistent with the comp plan. Kira, you want to take over?
Sure, thanks, Sharon. So just to briefly go over the participants in the zoning process. The Zoning Commission obviously adopts and amends the zoning regulations and the zoning map. The Zoning Commission also hears contested cases such as planned unit developments, campus plan design review. The Board of Zoning Adjustment hears cases related to requests for zoning relief and such as special exceptions and variances, as well as appeals of administrative decisions related to zoning. The Office of Zoning, our agency, we provide assistance to the Zoning Commission and BZA in support of their oversight of zoning matters in the district. We also provide guidance to applicants, ANCs, the general public on filing, participating in applications, as well as the hearings. Office of the Zoning Administrator is within the Department of Buildings, and this is sometimes a bit of can cause confusion between the Office of Zoning, the BZA Zoning Commission, and between what we do and what the zoning administrator does. And the zoning administrator is the person in the office that administers and enforces the zoning regulations, as well as the Zoning Commission and BZA orders, any conditions in those orders. So enforcement, it's just want to make it clear, is underneath the zoning administrator, and within DOB, the zoning administrator will also handle code enforcement. So if you have questions from constituents about, they're not enforcing this or they're not doing this, that would be with the Department of Buildings, not the Office of Zoning. The Office of Planning, Sharon talked about what they do, but they are the central planning agency for the district. In addition to writing the comp plan, they also submit recommendations on cases before the Zoning Commission and BZA. ANCs, obviously, you guys know what you do, but the ANCs do provide comments and recommendations to the Zoning Commission and board on contested cases, and are given great weight in those decisions. Then the Department of Transportation also submits recommendations on the Zoning Commission and BZA cases. And then for cases that involve historic districts or landmarks, Commission of Fine Arts, Old Georgetown Board, HPRB, these bodies may provide comment and analysis as well.
Okay. Sorry about that. So currently the Zoning Commission has one vacancy, and that is one of the 3 appointed members by the mayor. But at the top, we have Anthony Hood. He is our chairman. He's one of the 3 appointed district residents. And then we have Rob Miller. He is our 2nd appointed district resident. And as I said, the 3rd one is vacant. Then we have the Architect of the Capitol, Representative Joseph Imamura. And then our National Park Service designee is Tammy Stidham. And that is our current zoning commission. And I know that there have been interviews for quite a while now for the vacant district resident, but we do not have anyone at this point.
And so the current BZA also includes 5 members. Fred Hills is currently our chairman. And then so he's one of the 3 district resident mayoral appointees, joined by Lorna John, our vice chair, and Carl Blake. And then Krishan Smith is the National Capital Planning Commission designee. And then the 5th member is always a rotating member of the Zoning Commission that will participate in the weekly BZA hearings.
So the structure of the zoning regulations, as previously stated, there are 16 subtitles, and we're just going to briefly go over those. And so subtitle A is our zoning authority. You go here to find anything regarding administration and enforcement and vesting. Subtitle B contains definitions and use categories, general rules of measurement. Subtitle C are the general rules. So if you want to know anything about the pervious surface and the GAR, parking and loading, inclusionary zoning, this is where you're going to go for that type of information. Then subtitle D, Kara, if you could advance that. Subtitle D is where we start in our, start getting into our residential. And the first one is low to moderate density residential areas. Subtitle E is where we're going to find the residential flat, the RF zones. And this is the row buildings and flats. Subtitle F, the RA, residential apartments. This is when we start getting into the higher density, multiple dwelling unit development. Subtitle G, now we're getting into higher density, mixed use, broad range of, commercial, institutional, multiple dwelling, residential development. Then we move on to subtitle H. This is your neighborhood mixed use, NMU zones, mixed uses in defined neighborhood commercial areas. And then subtitle I, this is your downtown D zones, high density mix of uses.
And so with subtitle J, we have production, distribution, and repair, the repair zone. So these are areas, as mentioned earlier, with commercial, manufacturing, industrial uses. Subtitle K, these are special purpose zones. Again, these apply to larger sites that require a more cohesive set of regulations to guide development. Again, examples are St. Elizabeth, Union Station area, the Walter Reed development. Subtitle U, so these are all the use permissions, includes the uses that are allowed based on what zone that it's in. So uses that are allowed matter of right, and then uses that are allowed by special exception and the criteria required to allow that use. Subtitle W, these are just lists the boundaries for specific zone districts. And then subtitles X, Y, and Z are mostly about the procedures and standards. So subtitle X includes the procedures for PUDs, campus plans, map amendments. It also includes the general standards for variances and special exceptions. Subtitle Y is specific to the BZA procedures, and then subtitle Z is specific to the zoning commission.
So how does zoning work? What is matter of right? So when a property owner wants to build something on their land, and establish a new use on their property, if the zoning regulations allow the use or project, the property owner will apply for a building permit or certificate of occupancy with the Department of Building because no zoning relief is required. That's what matter of right means. They don't need to come to us. They can just go on about their business and deal with DOB and not bother with us. Now, if the zoning regulations do not allow the project as a matter of right, the property owner must come to us for zoning relief. And it's either the zoning commission or the Board of Zoning Adjustment, BZA, in order to move forward. And the requests for zoning relief, they can be a special exception or variances with the BZA, or it could be a PUD, design review, etc. with the zoning commission.
Sorry, I don't know if this was me. So we'll just go into the different general case types that come before the zoning commission and BZA. And so there's typically two general case types. So there's rulemaking cases, which are go before the zoning commission. And so this includes amendments to the zoning regulations and some amendments to the zoning map. So these are really like essentially changing the zoning regulations and changing the rules. So it's a matter of policy. Chancery cases that come before the BZA are the only type of rulemaking cases that the BZA would hear. I'll touch on that in a little bit, but and then contested cases are requests for zoning relief, plan new developments, and some other amendments to the zoning and map, and these deal with a very specific project, and there's parties to the case, and we call these essentially applications.
Okay, so the types of zoning commission cases. The first type I want to talk about is a text amendment. Text amendments are always rulemaking cases. And that's a petition to change the text of the zoning regulations. Now, map amendments. Map amendments can be an application, which is a contested case, or a petition, which is a rulemaking, to change the zone designation of a property. It can also include creating a new zone. And as I indicated with the application petition, it can be a rulemaking or a contested case, depending on the circumstances as stated in the regulations. When creating a new zone, that usually, or I would say 99.999% of the time, goes hand in hand with a text amendment. The text amendment, and there's been lately some confusion about this, but the text amendment will create the zone. It lays out, what the zone's intent is, what the any parameters for that development standards, I should say, for that specific zone. So while the text amendment creates the zone, then you have to have, because the text amendment is creating the zone, the map has to map it. So therefore, the map amendment goes hand in hand with the text amendment. So it's a text and map amendment together to create a new zone. And therefore, to break them up, it seems kind of crazy to have the text amendment be a rulemaking and the map amendment be a contested case. So they have always gone hand in hand, and they are rulemaking cases. Just because you can't have the map amendment without the rulemaking creating the map amendment case. Okay. And so then we have the PUDs, plan unit development. This is a process for large developments. And this is a process to ensure high quality development. And it also provides some public benefits. The developers usually work very closely with the community, or they should anyway. And usually the ANC is one of the places that the developer will go. They'll go to the ANC and try to work with them, or at least I hope they are. Campus plans, special exception review for large institutional uses such as universities and hospitals. Many, many, many years ago, campus plans were done by the BZA. I think this was like in the 90s. And then the BZA was, my understanding was, extremely busy, and the zoning commission at the time was not as busy. And so the zoning commission started reviewing campus plans. That's my understanding. Now, that may not be true, but that was what I was told many, many moons ago. And so it became the commission's review because they were seeing them more like a PUD. So the commission took over the review of campus plans, and so they do those. And they also do design reviews, which is also the review of a building and structure that warrants special attention due to the unique characteristics of an area and or the special project. And this is also really basically a special exception. Airspace development, this is a review of development in the airspace above public streets and alleys.
So compared to the zoning commission, the BZA hears a lot more cases for projects throughout the district, usually smaller in scale. And most commonly, these are special exceptions and variance applications. A special exception is a request to waive or deviate from an area or use requirement that is permitted in a zone, subject to specific criteria or conditions that are actually outlined in the zoning regulations. So with a special exception, the regulations will state that this type of deviation or waiver of the zoning regulations is permitted as long as, say, XYZ criteria are met. All special exception applications are also subject to general criteria where the applicant has to show how the relief requested will not have any adverse impacts and is still in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning regulations and map. A variance case can be a use variance, which is relief from the use requirements of a zone or an area variance, which would be relief from the development or measurement standards of a certain zone. So height, yards, FAR, et cetera, as we mentioned earlier. And like a special exception, a variance is a request to waive or deviate from a requirement. But unlike a special exception, it is not contemplated or outlined in the zoning regulations. So if the regulations don't specifically state if a request can be allowed by a special exception, then it would be considered a variance and is therefore subject to stricter criteria that the applicant must meet in order for the board to approve. And the three main criteria for variances are listed here. An applicant needs to explain what is exceptional or unique about the property. How is that uniqueness causing practical difficulty or hardship to the owner, and show that it would not cause substantial detriment to the public good or the intent of the zoning regulations. So for special exception and variance applications, the applicant must submit either a self-certification form that certifies the zoning relief required for the application, that's signed by a licensed architect or attorney, or they have to submit a zoning administrator's memorandum from the Department of Buildings that also certifies that the relief is being requested. Other types of BZA cases that the board doesn't see as often, so they're less common, but these are appeals and foreign mission cases. And we talk a little bit more about appeals in the advanced zoning training, but essentially anyone, including ANCs, can file an appeal, which is a challenge of the decision of any administrative officer or body related to the enforcement or administration of the zoning regulations. So for example, someone can appeal the issuance of a building permit by the zoning administrator, and it would be up to the appellant to prove why that building permit was issued in error and should have needed zoning relief. Foreign mission cases are requests by a chancery or embassy to relocate or modify its building, and these applications are different from other BZA cases in that they follow rulemaking procedures, as I mentioned earlier, and this means that ANCs can provide input, but they are not contested cases. So ANCs are not an automatic party. So participation in zoning cases, I think.
Yes.
I'll turn it back over.
So what exactly is the ANC's role in the two types of cases, rulemaking versus contested? So in a rulemaking case, basically, as Kira just stated in their, excuse me, foreign mission cases, the rulemaking cases, the ANC would just provide input. And I don't want it to sound like you're just providing. Your input is very important, and we do encourage the ANC's participation because it's very valuable for us. You are representing your area, so it's very valuable to us to hear what your constituents are saying. In a contested case, the ANC, the affected ANC, is an automatic party. And an affected ANC is one in which the property is located or one that is directly across the street from the affected property. You could be within 200 feet and not be an affected ANC because the case law is directly across the street. So I just want to put that out there. And let's see, Kira, I think you're next. Or actually, no, I've got one more here. So here we go. An affected ANC as an automatic party, you get to submit your written comments, which of course is your ANC report, which is given great weight. You can give testimony, present witnesses, cross-examine other parties and witnesses, and you can ask for a rehearing or reconsideration once the final decision is published, at least from the Zoning Commission's perspective. If it's published, you have 10 days to do that. And I believe, Kira, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 10 days after service with the BZA orders. Is that correct?
Correct. It's 10 days after the final date of the order, which is essentially when it's issued.
Yes. And see, with us, it's when it's published. Okay.
Right. So just a note on researching a case, and this is something we also will talk about more of in the advanced zoning training, and as well as just how NANC can submit their comments and participate. But just wanted to note here the Interactive Zoning Information System, ISIS. This is on the Office of Zoning's website. We've tried to make it really easy to look up cases and be able to look at all the exhibits and research applications that are in your ANC. And so this is where you would do that. And you can search by case number, you can search by ANC, relief type, and just enter it in there, and you should be able to find any cases you're looking for or cases that are in your ANC or area. So it's a really useful tool to look that information up. Participating in a hearing. So at a public hearing, again, if it's a contested case with parties, the Zoning Commission and BZA will take testimony from the applicant, the Office of Planning, and any other parties to the case. And then affected ANCs, as Sharon mentioned, are parties and may present testimony and cross-examine other parties and ask questions. And then there's always an opportunity for the public to provide public testimony. And just a note, when the Zoning Commission or BZA hold a public meeting, not a hearing, it's to deliberate and decide cases, and no public testimony is taken at that time. If the ANC does wish to participate and give testimony at the hearing, ANC reports are due at least 7 days before the hearing. This deadline can be waived, but we encourage ANCs not to wait until the last minute to submit their report if possible, just to allow the commission or the board time to review an ANC's recommendation. And then if the ANC does plan on participating, giving testimony at the hearing, the ANC must designate a representative in the report who is authorized to testify on behalf of the ANC. And so this could be the individual SMD commissioner where the project is located, or the chair, but that person just needs to be specified in the report. We do ask that witnesses sign up to testify, and then for virtual hearings, which we'll touch on briefly at the end, you can participate by WebEx video or phone, and this information is all in the notice referrals that are sent out, as well as on the Office of Zoning's website. So just some additional information and resources for you all that we wanted to put in here. And again, we will share this this PowerPoint with Gail so that you guys have it, and obviously the recording, but so you can access the links. We'll share that. But all of our hearings for both Zoning Commission and BZA are still virtual. This is via WebEx. We also have it on YouTube Live. You can listen also on the phone. And then the recordings are always available the next day on our website and on YouTube. Again, we ask any witnesses to sign up in advance on our website. We have a form for witnesses to fill out, or you can always sign up with staff by calling either our general number or those specific numbers. And then our virtual hearing procedures, these were adopted right during the pandemic. It was part of emergency text amendments, but it's in subtitle Y, section 103, and subtitle Z, section 103. But we ask, again, sign up in advance to testify. There's no live video allowed during testimony, so you can't be testifying and walk around with your phone or camera on to show something to the board or zoning commission. You can submit recorded videos as exhibits, but no live video. If there are any issues testifying during the hearing, an individual may request to reopen the record for technical difficulties. And then all submissions except for official ANC reports must be submitted at least 24 hours prior to the zoning commission or BZA hearing. If they're submitted after that deadline, they are not allowed into the record unless allowed by the commission or board. So that's important to note, especially for constituents, individuals who may want to submit additional testimony. It has to be in at least 24 hours before the hearing.
Okay, this is me. So the Interactive Zoning Information System, also known as ISIS. I like to say that we had ISIS before they had ISIS overseas, the ISIS, the bad ISIS. So we have the good ISIS, although some people may not think so. But so this is our Interactive Zoning Information System. And if you go on our website and you see these photos here, okay? So this first one here, go to case records. You're going to click on this one when you want to search for documents and a record. You just want to view. This is where you're going to go. If you want to file a new case or file comments or submit maybe on your own, you have a letter in opposition or a letter in support, that's when you're going to click go to file, manage, and manage cases. You're going to click on this icon here. Okay, so that's that. Our official zoning map. If you haven't had an opportunity to go in here, go in and search your own property, put in your own address, or if you know a square and lot, put it in. And when you click on it on the left-hand side, it's going to give you so much information. You know, it not only tells you the zone, it tells you any orders that were related to that square. And then it breaks it down into orders for that square and lot. It tells you what ANC it's in, what SMD it's in, who the ward council member is, and it's just a wealth of information there for you. And it will link you to the regulations and the handbook. It just has a lot of information there. If you haven't been there, go visit. It's got a lot of information. Okay. And then last but not least, well, not quite last, is our website. So when you go to our website, you know, I don't know how the BZA does it, but with Zoning Commission, I usually send out the link for a hearing if you've registered to testify. Now you need to register to testify in order to take the oath. But if for some reason you register to testify and it's late in the day and I sent out the email and you didn't get yours, you can always go on our website where it has watch the live BZA virtual hearings and meetings. And this is say you don't want to testify. Sorry,
Sharon, you muted yourself.
Yeah, I muted myself. My mouse hit the when I was rolling my mouse, hit the space bar. But anyway, you would go here, even if you're not testifying, you could still go here on our website and where it says watch the BZA and Zoning Commission virtual hearings and click there. And it gives you on that page the list of hearings for the Zoning Commission and BZA for that week. And there's a link, you know, to click for each of them, you know, whether it's a Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, it gives you the list for that week. So you can go on there and watch us. If you're not going to be testifying or anything, you can watch it via YouTube if you choose. I think it's a little bit of a delay there, maybe a 5-second delay. I don't know why. I think that's a YouTube thing. And or you can watch us via WebEx, either way. But you must register to testify if you plan on testifying, because that is how you take the oath. If you'll recall, when we were in the hearing room, we'd have everybody stand up, raise your right hand, and I'd give you the oath. But because we can't really have everybody stand up, raise your right hand, and look at everybody to make sure they got the hand raised, this is the way we found to do that. And people seem to be happy with that. And I think that's it on this page. the last thing, this is the last one. Feel free to contact either Kira or myself. And I do want to say congratulations to Kira. She's our new secretary to the BZA with Clifford Moy's retirement last month. So Kira is making some changes with the BZA. If you have any recommendations or prior complaints, keep those to yourself. I'm just kidding. Call Kira. It might be a recommendation that she could put into effect, and maybe not for this reason or that, but it might be something that she could take to heart and may be able to fix it. So anyway, that's all I have. There was a question in the Q&A that I saw and I accidentally deleted it, that asked about asking for the reconsideration. It is 10 days after publication in the Register. The Register, as you know, is published every Friday. So for the Zoning Commission, it is 10 days from the date of publication of the order. And as Kira said, for the BZA, it is 10 days from the date that the order is final. And she will have to explain when a BZA order is considered final, because I know that they put a date on the order, but I don't know if that is considered the date the order is final. So Kira, can you explain when the order is considered final? And I guess we could take this down now.
Yeah, so an order is final. So we put a date on there, and that same day is when it's also issued to the parties. And so 10 days after that final date is when a party can submit a motion for, or a motion for reconsideration can be submitted, or rehearing,
So it's 10
for BZAs.
days, 10 days after that date that is at the
Right.
order. Okay, and
Right.
the Zoning Commission is, so they have 10 days after that date. Really,
Once
20
it's
days? Or is it 20 days?
so it's a little tricky. So the order itself is effective 10 days after that final date. But it's also after the final date the order is issued. So when it is sent to the parties that day, they have 10 days to submit motion for reconsideration.
10 days after the date of service?
Correct.
Okay, so it's not really 10 days after the effective date of the order, it's 10 days after the date.
Right. It's a little confusing. Yeah.
Sharon, you keep placing yourself on mute.
I'm sorry, this keyboard, I have a separate keyboard and I keep hitting it. So, okay, so it is confusing. That's very confusing. We ought to change that in the regs, I tell you. You guys are so different and complicated to me. I'm glad I'm not on that side. I can keep up as I get older. I keep forgetting things. So okay, yeah, that is a little confusion. So 10 days from the date of service. That's easy. Okay. To just say it that way instead of the effective date. So 10 days from the date of service, and the Zoning Commission is 10 days from the date of publication. Got it. I hope that clears it up for everybody.
Yeah. Well, if not, we can open it up for questions if folks want to do that. If they want to ask it. I know folks have been using the Q&A. I just want to go over to allow us to, for the questions that were already answered. There was a question that was asked that said in the 2025, a complete rewrite of the comp plan is scheduled. Will that trigger changes to the zoning regs? And Sharon graciously answered possibly. So we obviously don't know that right now, but there is that possibility. The next question was, are there any updated or upcoming inclusionary zoning orientation classes for the affordable housing program?
That would not be our office. I think that would be something probably with DHCD. So I think that's something probably to check with them. I don't know who does that, to be honest. I think it would probably be them because they're the ones who, if the question is related to people being able to get in that rotation or lottery or however they do the IZ housing, it would be DHCD if that's what it's regarding.
Okay. We can take questions if you are interested in actually verbally asking them. You can raise your hand. So I will give everyone an opportunity to do that if they have any questions from the presentation.
Could I just say one more thing, Gail? I do want to
Sure,
say,
of course you can.
with the final, some of the ANCs I know were involved. I believe that you even submitted comments, Gail, in the case, I believe it's 2225, where we just had some changes to XYZ, and I believe there's one tiny little thing with the downtown or something. So the commission took final action on that, and it's in the process of having its final review before we publish that. So there will be some changes in the process. For example, the ANC's, the ANC set down form, for example, with the zoning commission, the ANCs had 30 days to fill that out and return it. I believe that's going to 40 days, for example. Some little changes like that will be going into effect once I get everybody else does their review on the order. I'll get it to do the final review. I'll send it up to ODAY for publication. And because it's over 25 pages is their limit for 1 week publication. Anything 25 pages and more, it's 2 weeks for rulemaking cases. So it'll be a 2-week publication. So I'll work with them. So it'll be within, I'd say, the next 2 months, changes will be coming. So the ANCs had asked for some more time for that, and we'll do it. And just in case there's any questions, I might as well go ahead and say the set down form is not required. It is a form simply for the ANC to have an opportunity to weigh in at the time of set down. When we redid the ZR16, we heard that the ANCs wanted to weigh in at the time of set down. So based on the advice we had from legal counsel, because there's really not a record until a case is set down. So there's really, it's not the time for the ANC to have official great weight. This form is not given great weight. It is just a time for the ANC to say, we think this case is ready to go forward with the hearing, or we don't think this case, we think this case is not, we think this case is inconsistent with the comp plan and should not be set down. That's all it is. It's not given great weight. You're not required to file it. So when I send out those referral letters to you that say, hey, this case was filed, you have, it will be 40 days to submit your set down form. I just want you to know you're not required to do it. I'd say probably 99% of the ANCs don't file it. So I don't want you to worry if you miss sending that in. And even if it's a little more than the 40 days, if the case has not been set down yet, go ahead and send it in. I don't care if it's late. As long as the case has not been set down, it's just saying, because, sometimes OP might take 3 months before it sets the case down, as we all know. If that case hasn't been set down, go ahead and send it in. And that way the commission will still have it to consider before they set the case down. Hopefully that makes sense. Because, I don't want you to think that, it's been 45 days, you finally got your ANC to say, we don't think this case should be set down because we think it's inconsistent with the comp plan, but it's been 45 days, we're past the deadline, but the case hasn't been set down yet. Send it in, because the whole point is to consider this at the time of set down. That 40 days is just so that we know per the regs that this is the minimum time before this case can move to the next step. It just says this case can't go forward for set down less than 40 days from the time it was filed. That's the whole purpose. So if it hasn't been set down, send me that form.
Okay, sounds wonderful. All right, we're at the top of the hour, so I don't see anyone's hands raised. Um, okay, Commissioner Kramer.
Just a quick, two questions. First of all, I didn't understand what you just said, Sharon, about the, that we don't get great weight if we have anything to say about not setting down. That's kind of a surprise. So, what does
No,
that mean? And
no,
the other, oh,
it shouldn't be, because that is what you get great weight on, is your actual ANC report with your list of concerns. That's what the court says. Your ANC list of issues and concerns is what is given great weight. If you just send in a report that says, we support this project, that's all it says. And we get a lot of those. That's not given great weight. What the court has says the ANC gets great weight on are your issues and concerns.
no, thank you for the clarification, because that was troubling. The other thing is, I wonder if you could give, you or Kira could give any more detail on either how the regs address public benefits for PUD. But what are the parameters? What's considered public benefits? We do that all the time, but I'd like to know what our opportunities are.
The only thing I'm gonna say about that is that no cash. They're not gonna,
No cash.
right, right. They're not gonna, it's not gonna be like, we're gonna give you $10,000. We're gonna donate $10,000 to, let's say the local school. And the reason why they were gonna give that $10,000 is because the local school needs to buy new library furniture. Let's just say that. What they will do is allow the developer to purchase the new furniture, or allow the new furniture to be purchased and the developer pay for it, and show that the new furniture has been purchased for the school and put in there. But they're not going to allow money to be given. And the reason why is because there were too many issues in the past with people saying that money was used for parties or this and that, somebody's personal use. It really wasn't used for what it was supposed to be. Though that furniture never got purchased. Those computers were never purchased. Those park benches were never purchased. They used the money for something else. So in order to make sure those benefits were truly put in place for the community, the commission said, let's put a stop to this money stuff and make sure that the actual items are being purchased and put in place. Does that make sense?
Sort of. We do get money. We frequently have gotten money for some very specific purpose, and then we
Exactly.
justify to the commission that we have received it for that purpose or whatever.
Right, but it's been earmarked for a certain purpose, and you have to usually provide proof that that's been done.
Right, thank you.
Yes.
There's one other question in the Q&A, and it just has to talk with, will there be a review of the changes? I think, Sharon, you mentioned ZC, the 2225 case that ANCs did weigh in on. So we will understand how to respond going forward.
I'm sorry, what was that, Gail? I see the question, and what
Yes.
was,
So I guess the question is, there are now some changes that will be affected to ZC 16 based off of what was approved in 22-25. So I guess the question from Commissioner Edwards is, will there be a review of the changes for the ANCs so we understand how to respond going forward? So what changes made it, what changes didn't? There was a lot of
Yes.
testimony. The record was open for a long time. I know that there were, some back and forth, and other agencies like the OAG weighed in. So I think agencies just wanted clarification and clarity on exactly what those changes are. So I think that's what
So,
she's asking. I
yes.
hope that's what she's
Okay.
asking.
Yeah, and if she is, the answer is, when when the order is finalized and sent for publication, it'll be served on the full ANCs. So hopefully your ANC will share that with all of the SMD commissioners. If not, the order is going to be in the record and it can be pulled from there, and the changes will be in there, the full changes.
Okay, hopefully that answered Commissioner Edwards' question. Commissioner Kramer, your hand is still up. I'm not sure if you still have questions or if you just have not removed your hand.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, those are all the questions in the Q&A. Hopefully, Commissioner Edwards, we answered it. If you have any further questions, as I said, this has been recorded and we will have it up on our website. It's also be on our YouTube channel. Contact information for both Sharon and Kira are in the presentation.
Yes.
And I believe you can also find that on their website as well. So if there are any other follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to them. I want to thank them very much for this. We have another training. Just let your other commissioners know if they couldn't make the daytime training, the next evening training, I believe is next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. So we will take it from there. Again, thanks very much, Sharon and Kira, and thanks to the commissioners who attended today. This ends our recording and ends our presentation for today. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gail.
Bye-bye.